And now it's time to go local for a few minutes. Mayors have been getting an increasingly high profile across the world as agents of change, and we speak to one of those brightest voices now, George Kamínī from Athens. Well, joining me now on the podcast is Mayor Kamínī of Athens. Thank you for joining us.
No, you're welcome. I'm very happy being here.
Great. Now, you were shortlisted for World Mayor of the Year, which is a great achievement in itself. But maybe we can start by you telling me a little bit about what achievement you're most proud of since you've been the mayor of Athens, because it hasn't been an easy time for Athens in the last few years.
No, I'm mayor since 2011. I'm on my second term. I was re-elected in 2014. So I think that one of our successes is that we have succeeded doing what the Greek state didn't do. That means economies. We have a surplus. And that means that we can spend money to take care of the poor people in Athens. And at the same time, bring European structural funds to the city so that we can make, let's say, the changes for the next decade for Athens 2030, let's say.
And then question two is around the support and the handling and the processing of refugees, because Greece has really been in a very difficult position there, where it's been receiving more refugees from Turkey, at least up until 2016, than any other country, but it's had less resources than anyone else to deal with it. But it also does seem like a lot of that has been mismanaged. Like, I've heard a lot of complaints that the EU funds haven't been managed correctly, and I've seen a lot of distressing situations.
It really is a very complicated issue, because you see, at the same time, we speak about the issue of funding. We have the issue of competences, government or local authorities. We have the mentalities of people. People are afraid, they feel insecure, and at the same time they ask, why protect the refugees while we are in despair, we ourselves. So you have to address those issues at the same time and simultaneously. Well, concerning the funding, I think that cities have performed much, much better than governments. First, on the question of principles. It is the cities who have applied the European principles on asylum. Well, you see that countries disagree, and they practice this not in my backyard, in limbo, as they call it. Cities have behaved in another way. Important cities like Berlin, like Leipzig, like Barcelona, like Athens. We in Athens, what we did was that we tried to speak in a realistic manner, to address the issue on very real terms and say, listen, we have a problem here, we have to manage it. So what do you prefer? You prefer refugees sleeping on the parks and on the public squares, or do you want us to offer them a space, a camp, where to stay, and also apartments? Now we are managing, the municipality of Athens, 300 apartments in Athens in a very successful way.
Now, if I could ask you a little bit about your own political ambitions, or your ambitions for the centre-left in Greece. We saw the collapse of the main centre-left party, PASOK, and now there are plans to develop a new party, and they seem to be getting underway quite rapidly.
Well, there is a big vacuum in our political system in the centre between Syriza, who is extreme left in his origins and even now in the way that they think. In their DNA, they are still leftists in Syriza, even though they try not to be. But they cannot succeed in that. On the other hand, we have the right-wing party, and now actually that we have a very controversial legislation on the issue of sex identity. We have now a big issue in the parliament, and we see what the right-wing party really is. They try to show themselves as liberals. In reality, most of them are very, very, very conservative. The most important division, the summa divisio, let's say, it still is between left and right, but at the same time it's between progress and conservatism. I think we can distinguish in the interior of many political parties in Europe.
And would your goal be to attract those voters who they don't support the right? So they went to Syriza because they knew that PASOK was dead. They didn't want to support a conservative alternative, and they were just angry at the system.
My candidacy can attract them. We can attract them back. Because at the same time, I have nothing to do with the past. I was not a member of PASOK, even though I have voted PASOK many times. So I have, let's say, a past that has nothing to do with interior conflicts and things like that. So I think I can bring those people back, and at the same time bring unity to a very fragmented political space. I think that I can do that.
Mm-hmm. And are we headed for elections, in your opinion, next year? I know that they don't have to take place next year, but there's constant rumours coming out of Athens that the government sort of won't survive or will hit a brick wall, yet there is some progress in terms of the bailout, so they do have a story to tell. That's it's not a failure, but it's a contested space.
That's not a story, that's a fairy tale.
Tell me why.
Because what they have to do is bring investments in the country so that we can have growth and start seeing that jobless people find jobs. We have the biggest rate of unemployment in Europe. And they say that it has started falling, but in reality these are precarious jobs that it's only for surviving. So there is no growth in the country, and they cannot bring this growth. So that's why I'm telling about a fairy tale. I think that we are going to have elections in 2018, even though normally they should take place in 2019, if our experiment, what we are trying to do, our project, not experiment, our project in center left succeeds. Then I think they will run to have elections because they will be panicked.
One final question. There are so many talented and wealthy and entrepreneurial Greeks around the world. You have an amazing diaspora. I'm from Australia, where I think it's almost the second or third biggest Greek city in the world, in Melbourne. There are so many Greeks there. What would it take, do you think, for some of those people, maybe the ones who've only been away a few years rather than a few generations, to actually come back and live in Greece, so that they chose Athens or Thessaloniki over London, for example?
The last 8 years, we have almost 500,000 young Greeks living in the country, in a very small country, So we have to bring them back. To bring them back, we have to change everything. And that's difficult, but some symbolic gestures must be done. First of all, we should involve them in the voting process. The second thing is that we need to open our economy. We need to open our markets, but have them regulated at the same time. But the most important thing is to leave no one behind.